Hi, I'm Emily Durgin, and I'm a professional distance runner for Under Armour. Thank you so much for tuning in to listen to the Us People podcast with Savia Rock.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Yes People podcast. I'm your host, Savia Rocks, and today I'm humbled to have Emily here with me, who is a professional runner for Under Armour. She's actually a long distance runner, and I'm so happy to have her on the show because I actually only messaged Emily not long ago, and she was so genuine in the way that she got back to me. And she was like, yeah, sure, I can do it. So Emily, thank you so much for coming on the Yes People podcast. How are you?
Hi, thank you so much for reaching out, and I'm really excited to be on. I love any opportunity that I kind of get to share my story and talk about professional running. So, yeah, thanks so much. I'm really well. It's great to be here.
No, that's perfect. So, Emily, my first question for you is, could you tell us a little bit about who you are as a person, what it was like growing up as a child for you, but also how that implemented you to be the person who you are today? How did that influence you to be the person who you are today?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I grew up in Maine. I was born and raised in Maine, and I have a family of one brother and then my mom and my dad. So I come from, yeah, a pretty
Oh,
standard family. And when I was younger, my brother was always super competitive in sports and,
ah,
did all of that. So when I was little, I am 6 years younger than him, so I was always kind of brought around to all his, football practices and baseball practices, and, yeah, I always was interested in dancing, so I started with dancing at a very young age,
oh,
which was
cool.
yeah, so kind of that was I'd probably say my first passion really, was with dance, and, um, that's kind of where I began the competitive scene. It would be we do dance competitions and all of that, and, the running came a little bit later, but it probably started as early as when I was at my brother's football practices. My dad would be like, "Oh, go run 1 lap around the track," kind of getting me to stop bugging him. So I'd run a lap, and then I'd come back, and I'd say, "Now what do I do?" And my dad's like, "You're already back. You need to tell me to go do another one." And at this point in my life, I was probably kindergarten, 1st grade. So this was even before I started running, but I remember my dad telling me that story is kind of yeah, that's one very funny memory that he'll bring up back, gosh, years ago.
Oh wow, that's so
Mhm.
that's so cool. So it seems like your family have played a huge part in being an influence in your life. Were they an influence also in your life for you to be able to start running? Were they your support behind you?
Yeah, totally. So the running kind of started my mom and dad both were runners when they were in high school, but it wasn't my mom was more competitive than my dad. They're high school sweethearts. So I think my dad just did
Oh,
it because my mom was on the cross country team. And it's really cool. My mom ran in the first ever in Maine, we're part of New England. So during um the fall season cross country, there's like a New England championship race, and my mom ran in the first ever cross country New England meet that they allowed females to compete in it.
oh
So
wow.
yeah, so she didn't run past high school, but she was always into running. So yeah, but I mean, just being active in sports in general, like I said, my brother grew up playing a bunch of different types of sports. I was in dance and soccer, and we were just a very active family. My mom still works out and does all kinds of different activities, snowshoes and cross country skis and all that. So it was just definitely played a big role in me being active and outside as at a young age. not necessarily, pushing me in a sport, just a matter of we were always on the go for sure.
Oh wow, that's amazing. So it's like it's genetically within you anyways, regardless. You knew that this was something that you was actually going to do. So here's a question I love to ask all my guests when they come on the Ask People podcast, which is, what do you see when you look in the mirror? And what does your reflection, Emily, say back to you? But also, how do you emotionally connect with what your reflection is saying to you?
Yeah, that is a really great question. I think that's something that I've had to work on over the years. I think when I was younger, I maybe tried a little bit harder to not be so true to myself and trying to be more of something different than what I saw in the mirror. And I think as I've gotten older, that I've accepted myself for who I am and wanting to be the best version of myself. So I think that's the biggest thing that I see when I look in the mirror is, this is who I am and let's get the full potential out of it instead of trying to change it or be something different.
Oh wow, that's so. Do you feel when you were younger, when you was looking in the mirror, you wasn't seeing your full potential?
Exactly, right. I think that instead of seeing my full potential, I was comparing myself more to people around me and trying to
Okay.
to be more of a different person than myself. Yes, constantly comparing, which I think it's taken a lot of years, and I think that it's still in my profession and in, distance running, it's so easy with social media to see what other athletes are doing and
Yeah.
what other athletes look like, and social media puts this picture out there, so then you'll be like, "Oh, should I be doing that as well?" But I think that um I find myself coming back to being true to myself and knowing that I'm doing everything possible to be the best version of myself, that doesn't matter what I'm seeing around me. But that's taken years to get to that point.
Hey Emily, I always say as long as you get there, then that's a beautiful thing. So
Yeah.
that's what matters. How is it being an athlete? What makes you feel good about yourself being an athlete?
I know that's kind of something I was reflecting on today with my boyfriend. We were talking a little bit about how be like the skills we learn as being an athlete can translate into the workplace and after when our careers are over, because he was a professional golfer and still is playing golf, but he's transitioning into real estate and he has his license now. So I think he's realizing there's a lot of crossover, the drive and motivation that we learn at such a young age and, kind of this go get it attitude. I think that's something that will stick with me. And obviously, right now, I know how to use it in my sport and in competition. I'm always trying to win and better my times. So I think that's the biggest takeaway that I've gotten over the years is we're constantly striving to be better. We're never just settled with the where we're at. I guess that's definitely how I approach it.
No, that's a good thing. Do you ever get butterflies when you're just about to have a race? And if you do, Emily, how do you calm yourself down?
Yeah, so I think that's also a great question because I like to have a little bit of nerves. I've noticed that times where I don't have that nervous energy, that some things may be off and I start to panic a bit. I was like, "Oh no, like why am I not feeling this way?" Because it's a bit of excitement and even in practice, I tried to practice using that positive nervous energy going into hard workouts because it's adrenaline, and that's what
Yeah.
fuels you to kind of have those amazing workouts, those amazing races. So I think the biggest thing is when you start to have them, if you're racing in like 3 days, you probably shouldn't be freaking out and super nervous 3 days before because that's gonna consume all of your energy if you're already worried about it. So I think
Yeah.
it's being able to notice that, but kind of put it away and kind of take it out right when you get to the start line. Like I'm somebody that even when I'm warming up, getting ready for a race, I like to be talking and I'm very like open and like to be chatting with teammates and coaches. And then right before I start, that's when I kind of let that excitement come out. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is not letting it consume too much energy early on, because that's
Yes.
a long 3 days to have those butterflies.
What is your one thing I would love to ask you is what is your
Mm.
daily routine like? What is Emily's daily routine like from when you wake up in the morning to when you train to when you are actually at an event and you're about to race? What is the whole process like for you?
Yeah, that's a awesome thing to talk about. So right now I'm actually in Phoenix, Arizona. Normally I live up in Flagstaff, Arizona. So I'm sponsored by Under Armour. So I live and train at Flagstaff, 7,000 feet. So high elevation training year round. But the past 5 weeks we are down in Phoenix. We being, I'm also part of a team called Dark Sky Distance, which is a group of athletes that are all sponsored by Under Armour. And we all live and train in Flagstaff, and we all have obviously high goals of making world, Olympic teams, and whatnot. So, yeah, I'm surrounded by incredible people every day. But on a typical day, so tomorrow is Friday, so I will wake up. We have a PM hard workout. So, what that means is in the morning, I'll do an easy shakeout run on my own and stretches and have breakfast and all that. And then in the afternoon, we'll meet at the track at 3 o'clock. So we'll get to the track and warm up together. And then we'll all have a certain specific workout for our event. So I'm gearing up for a 10K in Austin the end of the month. And at that 10K, we'll be trying to hit the Olympic standard. So
That's so
yeah, it's
cool.
kind of cool. So we kind of do block training. So right now, I'd say I'm in this 6 week cycle, and it's all geared up for this one race that will happen at the end of the month. So these workouts that I'm doing are geared specifically towards running my best possible 10K come the end of February. So, yeah, so we do 2 hard workouts a week and a long run on Sunday. So right now I run about 90 miles a week. So,
Whoa!
yeah, lots of running. Yeah, so lots of running, and the reason we do those 2 sessions a day is to be able to get the mileage in without doing it all at one time. So most days we'll do AM and a PM session.
Oh my gosh, Emily, you must have the most energy ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh wow. So, being a long distance runner, how do you always improve on your time? Because I know that time is always what we're trying to improve on, doing our best and achieving something that somebody else won't be able to beat. And being competitive, obviously, you want to hold that record for the best time. But how do you yourself, Emily, say to yourself, I'm going to do better, I'm going to have a better time? How does it all work for you?
Right. So I think that, that's kind of something that is a little bit hard, because being a professional distance runner, every time I go out in race, I want to run a PR. I want to, which is a personal record, a personal best. And once you get to this level, that's not a reality. So, obviously you always want to be better, but there's going to be certain races and certain days that you just don't perform your best. And during quarantine, we ended up having a race we put together, and I ran a 10K, and I ran a terrible time. It was slower than I
Oh,
had run. Yeah. So, and this happens to all athletes. You just have those off days, those off training cycles. And I think the biggest thing is to not dwell on it. Kind of, you do need to sit down, reflect, okay, what might have gone wrong? How are we going to avoid this from happening again? And then, let's go back to the drawing board and get ready for the next one. So with that being said, yes, I always want to run the fastest time and better times, but you also have to remember that there's stepping stones along the way, and you might have to take one step back, and then you'll take 3 steps forward. And I was able to come out of quarantine healthy and pretty fit, had a great training cycle. Unfortunately, the race didn't go as planned, but then I came back beginning of 2021 and I had one of my best races just back a few weeks ago, and I ran a PR and I ran a really great
See.
personal best. So yeah, I think that that's the biggest thing is to kind of not get too stuck in the lows, but also not too stuck in the highs. You kind of have to stay somewhere in the middle for sure.
Yeah, it's just a balance within life. I think is finding that balance. Sometimes can be quite hard, especially when you're in the moment and you're so excited to be able to say, "I'm in that moment, and okay, I'm going to celebrate it, but then I need to move forward." That's so cool. The
Yeah.
sports industry, Emily, is so competitive. How do you stay focused and stand out, not just as a runner, but as a leader, and also be positive and as a woman as well? How do you manage to stay focused, be a leader, and keep going in the industry?
Right. So I kind of have a unique story where out of college, I wasn't highly recruited by. So the way professional running works is you're normally recruited out of college. You most of the time will sign with an agent, and then agents shop you around to different shoe companies. And I had a good college career, but I wasn't top in the NCAA. I wasn't being recruited by agents or anything like that. But I knew, and people around me also were telling me that, oh, you haven't reached your full potential. I think you could become a lot better in the sport if you want to stick with it. And I still loved it, and I was still motivated to lower my times and continue to grow in the sport. So I made the decision to continue running, but without a full agent sponsor right away. And that was kind of really awesome because I was able to work as a nanny in Boston, and I was part of New Balance Boston. And it was just a really, really great year because it showed me what it took to be at the professional level. And I was surrounded by athletes that were sponsored athletes, and they were the ones that helped and motivated me get to that next level that I wasn't quite at when I first came out of college. So it was really, really awesome that I was able to do that. And, and the hard work paid off. I ended up running contract worthy times. And that's when I signed with an agent, and my dream became a reality. So, yeah, I kind of always go back to that moment. And where I am now, I try not to forget where I started and everyone that's kind of helped me become who I am and where I'm at today. So that's definitely what drives me forward. And now when I have teammates come in to our group outside when they're just leaving college and maybe they have a hard first year or a hard transition from college to the pro life, I try to explain to them my story and talk to them and be really open about the whole industry and everything that I've learned because I was really thankful for the ladies around me that did that for me a few years ago.
See, I love that story. Thank you for sharing that. That's
Yeah.
so cool. Was definitely how is a lot of people always ask me, like I've had boxers on the show, I've had runners, and I've had different sports of golf. They always ask me, some of them are just starting out, and one question that always gets asked is, how do you get sponsored? I know you spoke to me previously about you coming out of college and it was a bit different for you. You had to work a lot harder to be able to achieve what you've achieved, which is magnificent. But do you have any advice for anybody looking for sponsorship? What would you say to people who are just starting out and they have a magnificent talent, but they just don't know the direction to go in when it comes to being sponsored? What advice would you give them?
My biggest advice would to be your own advocate. That's something that I did right when I was out of college. I was the one that reached out to different coaches and groups. And even though I, wasn't going to sign with an agent right away, there's a lot of different pro coaches that would love to work with certain athletes. So my coach, Mark Coogan, I reached out to him and really wanted to join his training group. And he was able to sit down with me and get to know me, and then get the okay from New Balance to let me join the group. So yeah, I think the biggest thing is you can't sit around and wait for people to come to you, because most of the time, like, they may not know who you are, but as soon as you meet them and tell them why you want to train under them and work with them, they're going to be super excited to work with you. So yeah, that's my biggest advice, is kind of go out there. And I mean, the worst thing that's going to happen is they're going to say sorry, no, but you never know if you don't try. So
That's true.
yeah,
That's
um,
definitely true.
that's
What
the
motivates you? What motivates you, Emily? What let's get into music, because music is a big part of sports too.
Mhm.
What music drives you when you're doing your fitness? Is there any particular artist that you listen to that motivates you and gets you really hyped up when you're having a session?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know, but I do like a lot of Sia, her music.
Ah,
Yes, I it's kind of, I was just like listening to one of her songs like home, like this is good. Like, but I've never really been, I kind of like everything. Most of, I'll have a friend show me a song, I'll be like, oh, this is great. So I'm never stuck in one way or another. So, yeah, sometimes I listen to music. Like today, I ran completely by myself and I just didn't listen to anything. I just kind of, I was with my own thoughts. So, but there'll be other times where I go back to main, and I'll have my earbuds in when I'm training alone. But, yeah, most of the time, I'm not a huge music listener while I'm training. Even before races, I have some teammates that love to like, get pumped up to music, but for me, it's more I kind of just pump myself up. I got enough energy so I can make myself excited.
I love that. That's super cool.
Yeah.
How do you take yourself out of your comfort zone to then develop yourself to the next level?
Wow, yeah, this is something I'm still learning, and for me, I do a great job in practice at doing this. I'm able to show up to practice and be like, "Oh, I can take myself to this next level. I can make myself get uncomfortable and reach these great goals." But in races, when I'm lined up against Olympic medalists and these American record holders or world record holders, sometimes I it's a little bit harder for me to get out of my comfort zone and remind myself that I do belong there. So
Yeah.
that's something that I'm still working on, at the competition level, is really reminding myself that I belong next to these women. And I think that's the hardest part for me to get out of my comfort zone, is in those moments. So yeah, but that is where I do go back to my practices in my training and say, well, no, I was able to be confident in practice. I was able to come out of my comfort zone here. I can do it in these competitions as well, regardless of who's around me.
Emily, what has been your biggest physical and mental challenge that you've actually had to face, and how has that helped you become a better person within yourself?
I think it's just doubting myself. That's probably the biggest mental struggle that I've had to overcome. Again, going back to comparing yourself to others,
Yeah.
this can happen if we're talking strictly about racing when you're comparing your times. That's a really difficult thing because you can go to a start line and be, oh my goodness, all these ladies have run way faster than me. But I think that's something that I've had to overcome and realize that just because they've run faster than me doesn't mean that I can't compete with them and that I can run those times as well. I've been putting in all the work and
Yeah.
training just as hard, and I'm worthy of this position and worthy of my contract. And Under Armour chose me because they believed in me and they wanted me to represent their brand. So that's something that I've had to really face a lot of the time, especially just like I was telling you with not being the best college athlete. So that was kind of something hard that I had to overcome and still do for sure.
Do you find that knowing that you wasn't picked necessarily from college actually humbles you more and makes you want to achieve more to show people it doesn't matter where you come from, you can still excel?
I think so too. I think it's really nice kind of showing up to these races still and being the underdog. So
Yeah.
there's not as much eyes on you. In high school in the small town of Maine, I felt like I probably had way more pressure because everyone knew who I was and I was expected to always be in the front of these races. Whereas now it's kind of come full circle. Now at the pro level, that I show up and still people might not even know my name. I'm still young in the sport. I'm still proving that I belong here. So yeah, I do think that definitely humbles me and has allowed me to race more freely, especially before I, wasn't on a contract or anything. I think that that took a lot of pressure off that first year. It was just so awesome because I was just running for myself, and that's why I continue to come back to that because even now that I'm getting paid to do what I love, I still do it because I love it. And
Yeah.
it's not for anyone but myself. Obviously, I'm going to represent Under Armour and myself as well as I can, but I don't let that interfere with my performances.
If there was a question that you wish people would ask you more often, that people never really ask you, Emily, what would that question be?
I really loved your question about what we do in a day and what it takes to get to this level. I think educating yourself a bit more on what professional running is pretty awesome because a lot of the time people that aren't really interested in the sport sometimes think, "Oh, well, so you wear their clothes and you take pictures for them or something." They don't quite understand that we compete and race and
Yeah.
a lot of our bonuses are based on how well we perform throughout the year and yeah, so I think that that's a great question about just what the day-to-day lifestyle looks like and the amount of work that's actually put into it.
If you had a chance to go back to any memory, what memory would you go back to and why?
Any memory? Oh, yeah. That's all these questions are fantastic. Um, I I would have to say probably back to where I first fell in love with track and field and competing would be a memory that I would love to go back to because it was USATF track and field summer track. We would meet a couple nights a week in the summer for practices, and we had a meet every weekend. And it was our whole town would be part of the track team. And I just remember it'd be so fun showing up to these, even though they were all day and they were super hot, we'd be with like all of our closest friends, and then our parents would be there. And it just really is where I fell in love with the sport. And it also brings me back to why I love it. And it's also, yes, because I became very great at running, but at the time I was there because I was surrounded by people that I love to be around. And that stays true for today. And all my teammates now, I really enjoy being around, and they've become my closest friends at the high school level, the college level, and now the pro level. I've made these lifelong
Yeah.
friends that started back when I was in the fourth grade summer track and fields with these girls and guys.
Oh, wow, that's super cool. Was there ever a point in your life, Emily, where you felt you wanted to get? I know we always question ourselves, and I know you've done it, and I know I've done it too. But was there ever a point in your life where you said to yourself, I feel like giving up because you had lack of support, or you might not have had enough funds to support yourself or do what you want to do? How did you lift yourself back up to the point of where you are today?
Oh gosh, yes, for sure. it was really scary when I graduated from college, and knowing that I got a degree in communication and journalism, and I could have gone straight into my profession and worked full time with that, or taken the risk and trained for another year and tried to earn a contract. So that was definitely a really hard year. Thankfully, I come from a really supportive family and they're financially stable, that they were able to help me get a place in Boston and kind of get settled. And then I was able to find work. And like I said, I'm a very driven person. So when I decided that I wanted to take the year and try to lower my times and earn a contract, that I was looking for jobs that would work with my training. I was looking for groups that would support me as much as they could. And I was really lucky that I also had a family that said, "Yes, go and do this." But at the same time, there was a lot of pressure because my parents, they're very strict with, "Okay, you make a life for yourself. We will help you, but we want to make sure that you're giving this all you can." So I do think even though they were helping me, I was getting questioned a lot. And
Yeah.
um finally, and I kind of had to make sure that I kind of put that to the side, because back to like talking about what we do every day, I don't think my parents saw what I was doing every single day to get to the next level. And I don't ever want to tell them, "Oh, well, like I had these 3 practices plus I was trying to nanny." And yeah, so I think that a lot of the hard work in my eyes felt like it went unnoticed. And then when I finally was able to have the breakthrough that I knew I was going to have and earn where I'm at now, um, it was really celebrated, but I knew all along it was going to happen because I had been working so hard towards it.
Yeah. Who are some of your personal heroes? Who are some of the people that you hold in high regards?
I would definitely say my dad for sure. He's definitely someone that I've always gone to. He really levels me out, brings me back down, back to the too high and too low. I think that
Aw.
that he's someone that I've always gone to for that, because he was just the first person to tell me that, not all days are going to be great and awesome. There's going to be days that you feel kind of crappy, and that's okay. And I think that when I was younger, I had a really hard time with that. When I had a day that I did not feel perfect, I would really freak out. It would be so hard for me to kind of move on from it. And that was how I was able to kind of acknowledge it in him, just being vocal and saying, I have days that I wake up and I don't feel like I want to go to work or get out of bed. Like, it's human to feel those things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of what's motivated me to work on not being so caught up and feeling great all the time. And that will even translate into training. So, when I go out for a run, some days I feel awful. And I just remind myself, well, that's part of life. Not every day is going to be great. There's going to have crappy days and great days. So I would definitely say my dad's been one of those people that I look up to for sure.
Cool. What, how can I say this? What are you most proud of that you stand for as an individual?
My most proud of that I stand for as an individual.
Yeah.
I think that going back to being the person that is always trying to say this in the right way, but I think that just the way, I think just back to being driven and going after what you believe in and chasing your dreams and not waiting for other people to kind of hold your hand through them is something that I take a lot of pride in. And if there's something that I think I deserve without being too far in the other direction, that I'll make that known. And I think being a female in this in the sport industry, that's something you have to do, and you have to know your worth. And I think that's something that I do very well, and I'm very proud of that. I don't I don't let people take advantage of me.
That's definitely a good one, guys. I would definitely take that one on board. Self worth is definitely something I think we all should have. Describe your sense for your future. What do you feel you see for your future?
Yeah, so I for my future, I definitely see myself competing at the pro level through the next 4 years. So I've committed to running professionally for Under Armour through the 2024 Olympics, and I'm really happy that they're going to support me. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm very, very, very honored that they've taken this risk and are in it for the long term. So that gives me 4 more years to develop, 4 more years to grow as an athlete and a person. And so that's kind of the near future. And then after that, we'll see. If I still feel like I want to keep competing, maybe I'll continue running. And then um, someday, obviously, one of my biggest goals since I've been little is to have a family of my own and
Oh.
raise my own children just how my parents raised me. So yeah, that's kind of a in the future as well. But again, going back to just being the best possible version of yourself, that's kind of where I'm at. And I try not to get too caught up in planning the future, because
Yeah.
if I would have been in my planned future 10 years ago, it wouldn't have looked like this. So, that's something that I also try not to think too far into the future. I think it's really important to live in the present and yeah, be appreciative and thankful for what I have right now.
When was the last time you tried something spontaneous and new for yourself?
Gosh, spontaneous and new.
Mm.
Oh, ah, well, I mean, I will say, so I live in Arizona, and for me, when I decided to sign a professional contract, part of it was moving to Arizona. My whole life, I've lived, like I was talking about, in New England. I never left New England. I'm from Maine. I went to college in Connecticut, and then I lived in Boston. So those three states are all right
Wow.
next to each other. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I never was more than, gosh, 3 hour drive from home. So I'd say the most spontaneous thing I did was pack my car up and have it shipped and move across the country and really not know anyone and start this dream life that I've had for so long. That was definitely the most spontaneous thing I've ever done, for sure.
That's best. Wow. What is the best advice you have ever received from someone, and how has it helped you?
Well, I know I hate to repeat myself, but going back to just talking about not always feeling 100%, whether that's physically or mentally every day, and being able
Yeah.
to accept those moments and appreciate them for what they are, and then be able to move on to the next task or the next activity or the next day is something that I have been told in many different forms. Obviously, from my dad when I struggled in high school with just kind of anxiety. That was kind of his way of helping me, like, oh, just remember tomorrow is a new day. You're going to feel a different way tomorrow. And then into the professional running scene with coaches, having kind of an off workout, and then my coach being able to say, well, just because you felt terrible in this workout today, that doesn't reflect where you're at overall. So I think that's definitely the best advice that I've been given, and I can apply it to so many different parts of my life. I think it's been the most valuable, for sure.
Oh, definitely. When was the last time you felt totally at peace with yourself?
I would say right now, it feels awesome,
Oh.
yeah, to be
Oh.
at to be at peace with myself. I think that talking about the past and where I've come from and everything really shines a light on how far that I've grown. And with that being said, of course, there's so much more I can continue to grow on. But I will say that I totally am at peace with myself now, and just being able to like now think through my head about, oh, college Emily or high school Emily, or even the first year that I was trying to run pro Emily. I I feel like I wasn't at peace with myself fully, and I feel like I'm getting there, and that's something that I plan to continue to work on for the next X amount of years.
Here's a really spontaneous question. If you were a superhero and you had a superpower,
Mm.
what would your superpower be?
um, hmm.
She
Well,
jumped. She went, oh.
yeah, I mean, well, of course, it'd probably be to be as speedy as I can be, like flash lightning. I would get all the world records and all the records there are. So that would be super cool. Um, and then my second one that I was thinking about, like right when you started to ask that, was like to be invisible, because then you could be places and people wouldn't know you're there.
Yeah.
But then the more I think about it, I'm like, I don't think I want to know what people are saying when I'm not
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Yeah.
Oh dear. What is one thing that people always misunderstand about you?
Oh, that's a easy one. So
Oh, okay.
a lot of my friends have like, well, obviously I know this now, but I'm very blunt, or I say things um straight to the point, I guess. So I think sometimes it comes across as rude, or like, I don't know, but not even rude, because no one's ever, but I think that sometimes maybe I've offended people who don't quite know what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I think that again, I that definitely comes from how I was raised and how my parents are to me. It's just very like, we don't beat her up around the bush. We say how we feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but then I have a lot of friends that value that trait in me, because they're like, we know that if there's something going on, you're gonna say it how it is. It's not, nothing's ever mis like I don't hide anything. I guess that's probably the best way to put it. So yeah. But at the same time, I think sometimes I need to take a step back and make sure I process what I'm saying before I say it.
That's okay. That's okay. I think we all have that in us. It's just they I've always been told it's not what you say, it's how you say it. But sometimes we're just in that moment where we just need to say it.
Right.
That's it. That's it. Can you define what success means to you? Because we all have a different definition of what success means to us. But what does success mean to you as a person?
I'm very goal driven. If I set
Mhm.
goals for myself, being able to accomplish the goals is kind of success to me. And that goes for anything. I mean, as simple as it can go all the way down to having a to-do list and being able to do everything on my to-do list. Like, that's a success to me. With me, making that decision to try to, or not try, I knew that I was going to run professionally and get a pro contract instead of going straight into my other potential um profession. That once I did that, that was a success for me, because it was a goal that I had put for myself. And yeah, so I think that's probably the biggest way that I would define success, is when I'm able to accomplish my goals that I create for myself, not what other people create for me.
Definitely. If you could choose one quote that represents you as a person, what quote would you choose and why would you choose that particular quote?
Oh, these are hard. You didn't send me these questions before,
Yeah.
did you? I was like,
Yeah, I like that.
I feel like some people will send questions so then you can actually think about them. I didn't have any of these questions,
Nope.
so
Nope.
I that is so hard. Well, I guess I could go with my shirt through this
Yeah,
together,
you
but
can actually.
No, I know, because now I'm like blanking on what is a quote. Yeah, I might have to come back to this one because then
I don't mind. That's
we're gonna be off the phone or off the interview, and I'm gonna have all these great ones because I love
And then you're gonna
quotes.
message me afterwards.
Yeah.
You're gonna message me and Savia, I got some. No, that's okay. Even
Yeah.
if you can't think of one now, I always say to my guests, if you send me over the quote, I'll pull it in your write up
Is
and I
that
let everyone know.
the
Yeah.
hardest thing? They have a hard time thinking of one off.
Oh yeah. There's that one, and there is, if you were on a desert island, what one activist, what one musician, and what one sports icon would you take with you? But then you might be able to answer that one.
Yeah. Oh, that's a hard one too.
See?
Th-
See?
that makes me start like questioning everything. I'm like, oh, I don't know. Oh gosh. Yeah, those are two really, really, really tough think about it questions on the spot.
Let's see, it's really, really hard, but it's really cool at the same time, because then when you're off the interview, you might think, oh, okay, I think I've got it now. I think I've
Yeah,
got it now.
right. And but then you're like, oh no, that person might have actually been annoying, even though they sing well. I don't think I'd want to be around them.
They always say, actually, some people say to me, you should never meet your icon for some reason,
I have heard
because
that.
I don't know how true it is, but I don't know. I'll see when I meet my icon. We'll see. We'll see. I have two more for you, Emily.
Okay.
And my second to last one is, what would you like your legacy to be when you feel like you've done the best you can and become the best you can? And you say, that's it, I've had enough. I either just want to have my family or I want to retire. How would you like people to remember you?
I'd like people to remember me as the girl who went after my goals and that I didn't give up just because I wasn't granted a contract or granted an agent's deal right away. I think that there's so much potential in this kind of second tier, you can call them athletes that never get to the next level because there's not many opportunities. And I'd love to somehow make more opportunities for athletes, especially obviously distance runners, to be able to make money, train hard, and reach their full potential so that they are able to get on the highest level that would be having a professional contract and getting that opportunity. So that's what I really would like to be remembered as someone that broke through that level and got to the highest level.
You're definitely there.
Mhm.
You're definitely there. My final question for you, Emily, is, where can we find you on all your social medias? And if anybody else would like to follow you or get in touch with you, how could they get in touch with you on all your social medias?
Yeah, well, obviously, I responded pretty quickly on Instagram. I do love
Yeah.
Instagram. So that's what I use every pretty much most active on M_Durgin. And I know a lot of different people have like we were talking about going back to being comparing yourself on social media and all that. And I feel like I've always since obviously developing into an adult, I've had a very healthy relationship with social media and I use it in a positive way. So I really love Instagram for that. I think it's a great platform to share my journey and what I'm doing, and I hope that people that follow me agree. So, yeah, that's my favorite. That's where I'm at. You can find me there.
Emily, Emily, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the Yes People podcast. I want to thank you so much for your time, your humbleness, and for you being able to educate people on the Yes People podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed chatting with you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Emily. Guys, thank you so much for listening to the As People podcast. And please remember, you can subscribe and leave us a review on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and any other platform that you prefer listening to. Please also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And you can also donate to the As People podcast by simply going to the Savvy Rocks website or just typing in paypal.me/Us People podcast. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Stay happy, stay positive, and as always, please continue to be kind to one another.
Yes, it was great. Yeah, some really very awesome questions. I enjoyed having to answer them on the spot too, because that makes it, I feel like, a lot more genuine than getting them ahead of time.